We have breaking news on how Congress is dealing with the Epstein scandal. Number one, Trump's embattled Commerce Secretary, who was caught lying about visiting Epstein Island, has agreed to testify again. He has spoken to some degree about Epstein. He was also Epstein's former neighbor. And the Oversight Committee has a new letter out tonight calling on a range of new witnesses to agree to testimony. It is a demand letter, and they have subpoena power if they want to raise the stakes. And it includes a host of people, including former Obama White House lawyer Kathy Rumler. Her spokesman says she welcomes the opportunity to appear, so that suggests progress. But overall, she is part of 7 new individuals. These would be new witnesses subjected to this interview process, including Bill Gates, Epstein's longtime assistant, Leslie Groff, who we learned from the files was under DOJ scrutiny, and some other big names. This is a developing story. I'm joined by Congressman Robert Garcia, who's a top Democrat on oversight, part of this whole process. What can you tell me about this letter tonight, and what happens if some of those on here don't agree?
Well, look, first let me just begin by saying that we support those names. These are individuals that we have actually directly requested Chairman Comer to subpoena and to get testimony from. We have been pretty consistent in also forcing votes. We were going to force another vote tomorrow on Howard Lutnick. I'm glad now that Secretary Lutnick is going to come forward without any sort of subpoena and testify willingly. And if these other individuals will do the same, that is going to be a very important step for transparency and to ensure that we get the full truth on the Epstein files in this investigation. So we've said from day one, we will talk to anyone. We don't care what party they are, who they served with, or how powerful they are. If they know any information about Jeffrey Epstein, if they don't, they should. Then we should send out a subpoena to every single one of them to come forward and force a testimony.
This list includes individuals who we know substantively were in the orbit. Leon Black was someone who had a lot of money going back and forth with Epstein. And Rumler ultimately recently was pushed out of Goldman Sachs. The files show a whole range of interactions. Do you also view this as part of the overall progress, or do you view this as weighted in the other direction of partisanship, in that Doug Band is tied to Clinton, Rumler's tied to a Democratic administration, although many other Republican administration officials are not on this list? How do you view this list of names?
Look, I think obviously there has clearly been some kind of partisan direction from Republicans, and I think you've seen that in the last few weeks. And certainly, I think when the president, who has called this investigation a hoax, but then a week later will say that he wants Republicans to only go after Democrats. I mean, clearly there is a partisan nature. But at the same time, we want an opportunity to talk to anyone that was in Epstein's orbit. And so we don't really care their political party. If they have information, they should come forward and talk, which is why folks like Howard Lutnick, who's obviously the Commerce Secretary, should come before our committee. But I also want to remind the chairman and everyone else that the person that appears in the files, certainly more than all the folks you just mentioned, is actually Donald Trump. So if we really want to get to the bottom of what actually happened and why there's this cover-up, the person we should sit and talk with is President Trump.
To that point, here's what witness and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said.
I think that it would be in keeping with the scope of the investigation of this committee to set up a deposition with President Trump. Given what's in the files and given past and prior conduct, he would be on my witness list. He clearly knows what he did. He knows what others did.
Congressman, many people view that as a long shot, but so was a bipartisan vote that you and Ro Khanna and Massey and others ultimately got to force out the files. What would be the path to that, and what are you doing about any misleading redactions or held back documents at this juncture?
Well, I think one is, obviously, we've set a new precedent, and we've supported, by the way, we wanted to talk to Bill Clinton. We're glad that he came in. We've set a new precedent to have in certainly former presidents come testify. And so we will again ask President Trump to come and voluntarily meet and sit down with our committee. And if not, there's other actions we can take. And certainly in the majority, we're going to try to force that action. And if not, then Donald Trump won't be the president forever. And so we are going to ensure that we get to the truth. As it relates to missing documents, we continue to find that the DOJ is removing more and more documents from the files. There's been reporting on that. It's completely outrageous. Remember, they've only produced about 50% of them. And so when people talk about releasing the files, that's not over. The Epstein files have not been released. We've had a partial release.
To jump in, let's say people are listening to you, let's say they agree or that sounds right, and here we are now going into another month, March, after this deadline of December. When do you sue? When do you take other measures?
So the power of suing, as you know, within the House is decided by the House majority to sue as a Congress. But we are working with outside groups. There are outside groups right now that have already filed certain lawsuits. Those are going to continue. And the pressure of the American public has actually made a real difference. I mean, think about just a few months ago and where we're at today. When we have forced subpoena votes. We've forced a Transparency Act law. We've ensured that we've talked to folks incredible,
I'm only jumping in to say
the minority.
Yeah, you've done a lot for the minority. Do you think Massey would join you on suing? I mean, go ahead.
I think that we are building Republicans, a bipartisan coalition to get more and more folks to ensure that as a body, we demand the rest of those files. And so there's a lot happening right now in the works for that very thing to happen. But what's important is the pressure has to also come from the American public. Right now, I mean, over 70% of Republicans and Democrats believe that all the Epstein files should be released. It's an important issue. It's, in fact, Donald Trump's worst performing issue when you look at polling and survey work. And so Republicans need to do the right thing here. This is about survivors. We are making incredible progress. This investigation is just getting started. It's not a hoax. And Donald Trump should come and testify in front of the committee.
Congressional scrutiny of the Epstein investigation is intensifying, with lawmakers signaling a broader and more aggressive phase of oversight. The immediate development centers on renewed testimony from the Commerce Secretary, who has agreed to return without a subpoena. That decision follows mounting pressure from the House Oversight Committee, which has now issued a formal demand letter to additional high-profile individuals. The list spans political figures, legal advisors, and business leaders, underscoring the investigation's widening scope. Lawmakers say voluntary cooperation would demonstrate transparency, but if witnesses decline, subpoenas remain firmly on the table. According to Congressman Robert Garcia, the committee is prepared to compel testimony from anyone believed to have relevant knowledge or connections within Jeffrey Epstein's orbit. The investigation has also taken on sharper political dimensions. Garcia directly named former President Donald Trump as a central figure appearing in the files, arguing that if Congress is serious about uncovering the full truth, it must be willing to question anyone, regardless of party affiliation. That position was reinforced by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who publicly stated that a deposition with Trump would align with the committee's mandate. Her comments add to growing Democratic calls for direct presidential testimony. At the same time, concerns remain over document transparency. Lawmakers claim that only about half of the Epstein-related files have been produced, describing the current release as partial and incomplete. Questions over redactions, withheld records, and the Department of Justice's handling of materials continue to fuel tension on Capitol Hill. Beyond Washington, public opinion appears to be playing a significant role. According to the congressman, more than 70% of Americans, across party lines, support the full release of the files. That bipartisan pressure, he argues, is reshaping the political landscape and forcing action. For now, the investigation remains active and expanding. Subpoenas, potential lawsuits, and further testimony are all possible in the weeks ahead. What began as document requests has evolved into a broader battle over transparency, accountability, and political responsibility. And as lawmakers make clear, this inquiry is far from over.